Welcome to the Italian Football Podcast.
Okay, we have to speak about Paul Pogba here because he has suffered another injury in training just as he was coming back from his previous surgery. He's suffered a thigh injury that is expected to keep him out for at least 10 days. That means that he's probably, almost certainly, not going to play for Juventus until the World Cup. We'll have to wait and see just how serious it is and whether he can go to the World Cup. I think that it's very, very much at risk that he will go to the World Cup because, the World Cup squads are announced on November the 13th. If you're Didier Deschamps, do you take Paul Pogba to the World Cup when he's not played this season? He's not actually played competitively because of that injury that he got at the end of last season with Man United since April the 19th. So you're looking at 7 months without playing competitive football. The only football match of any kind that he's played was 45 minutes in a friendly for Juventus in the summer against Guadalajara. Played 45 minutes in their first friendly. Then he got injured the next day in training. And then, of course, that was his knee, wasn't it? He tore the meniscus in his knee during the preseason training in the US. And they ridiculously tried this conservative therapy, didn't they? To try and see if that he could carry on playing. That inevitably, as everybody knew, didn't work. Eventually, he had to go under the knife. He had the surgery, and he was just on his way back. He was aiming to play this weekend. Actually, the aim was either the Inter game or next week, so that he would get some minutes before Deschamps names his World Cup squad. And now he's had yet another setback, and this injury crisis for Pogba it's a huge worry. As we were discussing with Pogba, but he's 29, Pogba, just like Lukaku is, 30 during this season, just like Lukaku. And you look at his recent injury record, and you do have to ask the question: are we witnessing the end of Pogba's top-level career? Is his top-level career over? I'm not saying it is. He's obviously an incredibly gifted player. But the number of injuries that Pogba has had over the last 3 years in particular, this is the 10th different injury that Pogba has had in 3 years. He's now, as we're speaking right now, he's missed 101 games during that time. 101 matches. That's just for club. That's just for his club, by the way. That's not even including an international team. 101, over 100 games he's missed through injury in the last 3 years. What do you think, Nima? Have we seen the end of Pogba as a top player?
I think his physical status the last 3 years would suggest that, wouldn't it? I don't think his ability that there's been a decline in his ability. I think given the kind of player he is, I think he's got the style that he could probably go. He could play for well into his 30s if he wasn't so injured. But having said that, I do think that given the injuries, which we can't discard as what they are, I think maybe yes. I think it's his body can't take it anymore. I'd gladly be proven wrong, because I think when he's fit and in the right midfield, used in the right way, I think he's a fantastic player. I really do.
Yeah. It's a big shame. It's a big shame, but it's also the reason why, and I hate to do another "I told you so," but this is why.
No, you don't. You love it.
Well, this is why I said during the summer when Juventus signed him on a free transfer. Why are all Juventus fans? Well, not all. There's quite a lot that were against it, but why are so many people jumping up and down and getting excited about signing a player that's missed over, I think it was around about 75 games through injury in 2.5 years at the time. That it's just basic logic. You don't miss that number of games and that number of injuries repetitively unless there's something clearly wrong and it's not right. And Juventus got him on a free transfer, but they also paid him big wages. And, he was signed to be the player that took them to the next level in midfield. And by signing him instead of somebody else, they now have to make do without that midfielder that they needed. So obviously, I hope that he comes back in 2023 and he becomes the player that Juventus need, and he gets back to his best and he's fit and everything. But 3 years of just constant injury after injury, there's obviously something not right with his body, and he's breaking down. And maybe it is his age. He's not that old, but he started quite young. He was already a superstar by the age of 21, wasn't he? And so, it is very, very concerning. But just as concerning is, I think Pogba's at the wrong club if he wants to sort out his injury situation, because Juventus's injury crisis right now is becoming an absolute joke. I mean, you just go on social media, go onto Facebook, onto Twitter, and just see all the memes and the jokes that are going round. I mean, I don't know how, by the way, the Juventus medical team there hasn't been a massive purge of them with a number of injuries, because that is the common denominator throughout all of this. Juventus go into this PSG game in midweek without 14 first team players. 14. I mean, can you actually believe that? 14. It's insane. And
no, it's bizarre.
The repeated muscular injuries,
bizarre.
The muscular injuries as well is the big one. There's been so many muscular injuries, which has to be put down to the medical team when you're getting that many muscular injuries, in my opinion. There's some injuries that can just be unlucky. Contact injuries, you can't do anything about contact injuries. Even sometimes if you twist your ankle or twist your knee, sometimes you can't do anything about those. Those injuries can just happen. Obviously, some players are more physically prone, injury prone, but to get repeated muscular injuries, and also when you look at the lack of conditioning that Juventus team has had, and how they're completely incapable of maintaining any kind of intensity for more than 20 or 30 minutes in a game, and how many times they've completely fallen away in matches, physically in the second half. I think it all comes down to the same thing, and that is the Juventus' medical team is completely failing. You don't have 14 first-team players out. And then, the next most amount of injuries in Serie A is 6, with Roma 6. So they're absolutely way out in front with the number of injuries.
Listen to the full show and all other episodes by going to patreon.com/TIFP and become a member for only $2.99 per month.